Somewhere in this building, my 10-year-old daughter is running around with her friends, or hopefully she's participating in the structured children's programming. Elisa had the chance to meet her multiple times this year, as she usually hung out with me on Monday afternoons after school when Elisa was waiting for Miles in his classes with Lauren. Now, I say the words, "I love you," to this little girl multiple times a day, potentially ad nauseum. Sometimes she's embarrassed by it. Sometimes I get an eye roll and "I know" in response. And this is the nicest one, quite often, usually when hanging up a call or when one of us leaves the house, she responds with, "I love you more." Now, I'm not sure if "I love you more" means I love you more than you love me, or I love you more than mac and cheese from United Bakers, but I'll take it. And here's the amazing thing. According to our tradition, she does not need to say it, to feel it, or even believe it. She is not commanded to love me or even like me. There is no mitzvah, there's no commandment to love parents. Although Miles and Haley and Ryan and all the kids in this room, I encourage you to love your parents. On Thursday mornings, I have the privilege of teaching Torah to members of this community. You're all welcome to join us. We start at 10 o'clock. We're in the boardroom on that corner. And for the last 2 years, we have been learning from the book of Deuteronomy. This year, we started at the beginning of chapter 5, and we're only on verse 17. We go deep. We spent an exceedingly long amount of time looking at verse 16, which is, "Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, ka'asher sivcha Adonai Elohecha, lema'an ya'arichun yamecha, ulema'an yitav lach al ha'adama, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach." Honor, respect your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may long endure and that you may fare well in the land that the Lord your God is assigning to you. Now that is the fifth of the famous 10 Commandments. It is found in both chapter 5 of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, and chapter 20 of Exodus, of Shmot. This mitzvah has a companion mitzvah, which is found in this week's parsha, and it is Ish imo ve'aviv tira'u, ve'et shabtotai tishmoru, ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall each revere his mother and his father and keep my Shabbats. I am the Lord your God. The Torah and our later codes, they designate a tremendous amount of real estate to how children are expected to interact with and treat parents. But not once are children blatantly commanded to love their parents. Aside from love, there are numerous other obligations of children towards parents listed at all levels of Jewish law. For example, in the Torah, in Shmot chapter 21, we read, "Makeh aviv ve'imo mot yumat," and "Mekalel aviv ve'imo mot yumat." One who hits or curses out their parents will be put to death. So don't do those, especially boys who are 12, 13 in this room. Now later, in both the Talmud and the Midrash, the rabbis ask, what is fear and what is honor? Because there are these two mitzvahs which are pretty similar. Yir'ah, fear of one's parent, the word that's used in our parsha, includes the following. One may not stand in their parents' fixed place. One may not sit in their place. One may not contradict their statements by expressing an opinion contrary to that of his parents. And one may not choose sides when a parent argues with someone else. And what is considered honor, kavod, respect? One gives his parent food and drink, dresses and covers them, and brings them in and takes them out for all of their household needs. You might note that these are actions. These are mitzvot of what to do. And for some people, these mitzvot are so simple. Performing these mitzvot is akin to breathing. For others, they're really hard, and we need to take deep breaths before we do them. Every single person in my Thursday morning class agreed that honoring and showing respect for our parents can be some of the most difficult of all of the mitzvot. And it doesn't get easier with practice or with age. In fact, it usually gets more challenging. Christian theologian, the Reverend Patrick Miller, who spent decades at the Princeton Theological Seminary, he wrote that the commandment was not primarily directed to children to tell them how to treat their parents, but to adults. This means that this commandment has in mind especially how mature adults are to treat their older or elderly parents. Caring for the frail and infirm can be exhausting and enervating, and the Torah worries about the all-too-human temptation to abandon them. These mitzvot focus on the mature person, no longer under the control of parents, and now probably stronger than they are in every way. Adding to this, my colleague, Rabbi Mark Greenspan, writes that the sages wrestled with the same issues with which we struggle today in our relationships with our parents. But difficulty does not absolve us of responsibility. One of my parents has both Parkinson's and dementia, and both diseases are progressing rapidly. I agree. It's so difficult. And if you've been there, you know. Young children, by their very nature, are going to love their parents when they are not angry at them. My child, who tells me that she loves me, has also been known to say, "You're not my favorite parent." But that's because we've outlawed saying the words, "I hate you," in my family. She can't get that. She says that, no screams. I actually find it odd that mixed in with all of the mitzvot from children to parents, that we're not commanded to love our parents. After all, we're commanded to love God. We remind ourselves of that every single day when we say the first paragraph of the Shema. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha. You shall love Adonai, your God, with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your everything. And then later in this week's Parsha, we read just before that we must love our neighbor as ourselves, as I shared with Miles, and that we should love the stranger. Our neighbor and the stranger are pointed out and emphasized and highlighted, but not our parents, those who gave us birth and raised us. The best answer that I found to my question of why is there no mitzvah to love our parents was from Rabbi Joseph Telushkin. And he wrote, "I think the real reason is that the Torah realized that it's harder to command love in a relationship as intimate as between children and parents. Either the love is present or it isn't. In addition, he writes, many children, much as they might love their parents most of the time, go through periods of estrangement from them. Thus, what the Torah is offering us is a guideline for behavior, even during those periods when we might not be feeling loving towards our parents. Even at those times when we feel our parents have not been fair to us, or even when we have seen them do something that we regard as wrong, we're still obligated to honor them. Now, ideally, as I sidebar to all the kids in this room, parents and children should love each other. But as Rav Soloveitchik once pointed out, halacha, Jewish law, is more concerned with external behavior expectations than internal emotional responses to parents. And sure, it's fitting for a person to acknowledge and return kindness to people who were good to them and raised them and provided a roof over their heads. But that's not what our tradition asks of us. So what can we learn from this? We can learn that the mitzvot found in the Torah directed at children towards parents are about actions, not emotion. And in many ways, I'm preaching to the choir because so many of you know that when our parents get older, we need to mobilize and get up and get on the phone and search the internet and ask for referrals and simply do for them. And a lot of you have been there. For some of you, it was a breeze and it just felt natural. And for others, it really wasn't. The mitzvah is not to say, I love you. The mitzvot of showing kavod and yirah are activated by getting your parents groceries, by going with them to their appointments, by being the secondary person on their bank accounts, and by arranging for the best care for their specific situation. And every situation is unique. Saying I love you to your parents might give your parents a dopamine hit, but at the end of the day, I love you, those are just words. When I get older, I hope I get more than words from my child, and I hope others do too. Shabbat Shalom.